So Reed Street's coming down.
Yep.
County attorney's
Yeah,
office.
right.
She has a new personnel department started out.
Well, the
Who's in there now?
broadcast.
Water,
they had a
sewer,
broadcast.
and, waste management.
They came to us for.
I'm county attorney down at the old IDA.
On this Tuesday, the last Tuesday of the month, to coincide with a board meeting for at least 3 years, right?
For a while, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, if anybody, wants to make any changes, now is the time, but that's what that resolution's about, Joe, so you want to go, anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, that's, it's the fourth Tuesday of the month at 4 o'clock in the Heroes Room monthly.
So is everybody satisfied with that? So do we have a motion to approve?
Motion?
Second. Second. All right, then, is there any more discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? Resolution 25. -01. Next resolution is 25-02, authorizing the side lot sale of the Railroad Avenue property. And we've had that property for quite a while, so do I have a motion to approve that?
Motion?
Do we have a second? Okay, I got a second, right, Dave? Okay, so we got a motion and a second, so we'll have Joe go over what's happened with that property.
Sure. So we got this property back in 2018, I believe, in tax foreclosure from the county. It came as a double set with the property next door. And we conducted demolition on the next door property. It was a very, it wasn't a great place. At that point, Habitat for Humanity came through when we were partnering with them more closely, and the site was not really appropriate for them to build a new house. The lot that the house was on was too small, and the lot next door was too wet. So we eventually were able to approve a side lot sale to the owners of the neighboring property, 2020-ish, maybe 2021, somewhere around then. And we were not able to sell them the wooded lot that came as the package deal. We listed the property with Nick DeVoli at Century 21 at least twice. He had it up for $4,000 and then got nothing, no interest on it. And it's kind of been sitting there since. Recently, the neighboring property sold, and the new owners of that property also acquired the side lot that we sold a few years back. And we received an application from the new owner's father, who was interested in purchasing the wooded lot that we still own there at the end of Railroad Avenue, kind of set up against the railroad tracks there. So his name is Dale Groom. He is a former code officer for the village, former corrections employee, former naval. He's in the Navy. And he also works part-time at the cemetery that's very nearby. And it's his intention to buy this property, clean up the garbage that's on it, and use it and hold it as neighboring to his daughter. He's got long-term plans to maybe use it to build on when his son gets out of the military in a couple of years. He might do that. He just wants it. So we put this application together and the resolution. It's not quite a traditional side lot sale because it's not himself that is the owner of the neighboring property, but that is the reason he's interested in it. And we've had the property for so long without much interest in anyone wanting to purchase it and put it back on the tax rolls that we basically put it together like it was a side lot sale, but not quite. So he offered $1,500, which is above the rule of thumb that we've used in the past for a quarter of assessed value. And I think we should sell it to him.
Do you want to mention the right of first refusal?
And we're contemplating adding a right of first refusal for if you were to sell it to the owners of the other lots, where his daughter and formerly Roger Bartle lived. If they don't want it, we would entertain a first refusal after that. But that would just enable to keep some level of coordination and consolidation with that whole railroad property right there. Because it would make sense. You can't get to it in any other way than really accessing those neighboring properties. So ideally, it would continue to be associated with them.
Does anyone have any questions?
No, I just
You guys are familiar with it, you're right.
Yeah, like, who would be paying the fees, like, attorney fees and such for the transaction? Would we be paying those, like when they purchase it?
Oh, the right of first refusal, or
Yeah.
this time around?
No, this time around, like, would the buyer be responsible to pay?
Buyer pays it.
Pros and cons.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Buyer's gonna do the closing costs.
Yeah, that's in the
Okay.
application. I think it's here.
It's $500 or something.
Yeah, or something.
Yeah, that was just a guess. What it would cost.
Are they going through us then for the closing?
Yes, the way we do it, it's a little complicated. He can go out and get his own lawyer if he wants. I wouldn't, the land bank obviously would represent him. What we would do is the seller always draws the deed anyway, so we would draw the deed and the other, we have to always first draft all documents. And then they're for him to look at, and if he wants to bring it to another lawyer, he can, otherwise, you know, takes them as is the way we've got them.
Then you file a deed or two, so you.
We'd probably record, like, I'd probably get the recording so I can get it on record, but he would pay the recording fees. Yeah, or we'd split the traditional way, seller pays their couple of pieces, buyer pays to record the deed itself, is how we'd split it. But so, right, so the attorney's fees, he's paying, I guess that's a question. Yeah, it's almost like he gives us a credit for the attorney's fees is how we have it here.
Yeah.
For the fact that we're gonna draw the deed and he's not gonna have to write. Yeah. And we give a quick claim for a bargain and sale deed, so the question of whether he wants it, you know, a title exam, that's up to him.
And we wouldn't pay for that.
And so this guy's worked for you too, when you were on the board and.
He's,
Wow.
yeah,
He's a good guy, right?
I don't know that much about him, but I've not heard anything bad. In fact, you know,
I don't know much about it. Those I know is, yeah, over there. Those guys
there's
kind of
no,
work
there's no
out.
problems, but you know, it's a.
He buys the property, it's his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job with it.
Okay,
Pay
so,
all the fees.
alrighty, so we did have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion on, this motion? To sell the railroad property there? Okay, if not, all those in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
You're gonna have a roll call vote? There's something here.
Only if, I think the only one roll call, somebody's gonna say no. You know,
Or abstain.
or abstain.
Okay, everybody said aye, right? Okay, we're good with that. Okay, now we're on to number 5, and that's the CEO president update discussion items, and 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll just let Joe go right through one, you know, each dot. And then we can ask questions as we go along.
Sure.
I'll go ahead on the update one.
So updating on annual meeting, the audit, annual report. You may have noticed that at this first meeting of the year, we did not appoint the chairman, the vice chairman, the secretary, and do all that stuff. Over the past year or so, Esther has been working to align our meeting schedule with requirements for public authorities reporting, with requirements under the Land Bank Act, and requirements under our own bylaws. So to do that, she's come up with a new schedule to when the annual meeting will occur, and it will be in March. So at the March meeting will technically be the annual meeting, and that's when we'll appoint officers and do that type of activity. So that's why we're not doing it now. That also will coincide with the end of the audit, and we'll be giving the audit report at the annual meeting. Is that where? Yep. So we're supposed to do that. So we'll be doing that in order. So we were doing all these things before, but they just weren't lining up under every single statute that we're supposed to be operating under. Doing it this way just puts them where they're supposed to be. So
I have to dovetail with the board of supervisors also, which is part of the thing.
Yep.
So we were doing it out of order, and you have to go to the board of supervisors first, because they're the overboard, and then you have your annual meeting the same day. So that's what they do.
So we were doing everything we were supposed to be doing. It just wasn't sequenced exactly how it needed to be in light of every single regulation that we needed.
No, this just makes more sense. It's not that there's anything wrong.
So, and the audit is so far so good. We're moving forward, and I haven't heard much in terms of questions or feedback yet, which is a good sign. Generally, if things are, if they have questions, they're reaching out. And I've yet to get much of a response from Bonadio or the Bowers accountants working on that. So that's trending in the right direction. And along with the audit, we'll be working on all of the procurement reports and everything to submit to public authorities by the end of March. So all of that is underway.
Oh, I just want to say one thing.
Sure.
After Joe gives the reports before we do the attorney comments. We'll do resolution 2503. I neglected to shoot that out here, so we'll do that just before Esther gives her report.
And we did have a resolution that came up
Sorry about that.
that needed to get into this.
I know we were doing it with new business anyway.
That's where I was planning, so.
Okay.
55 Washington and 17 South Walnut. These are the FLACRA partner projects in the village of Waterloo. We completed demolition at 17 South Walnut in December, so that's done. We paid out the demolition contractor, and we have submitted to HCR for reimbursement for that work and for all of the design and basically everything we've done in the last couple of months, we submitted for reimbursement. So we should be receiving that reimbursement soon. For 55 Washington, we're appearing in front of the village planning board tomorrow night for a special use permit for new construction of the historic house at 55 Washington, as well as 3 units in the back. We're also expecting to receive a permit by right for new construction of a single-family house at 17 South Walnut. With that, we've also signed the MOU with the State Historic Preservation Office for the historic eligible home at 55 Washington and being able to demolish it. So we got hung up with SHPO for a while on getting the approval from the historic office to take that building down. We have now reached the point where we have an agreement with them that we need to follow certain stipulations, and then we'll be able to tear it down, mostly around documentation. So the architects are working with a preservation group that will take the special photos you need to take, submit them to the New York State Archives, and follow those stipulations. When that's completed, we'll be able to tear that house down. I'm expecting at the next meeting, we'll be authorizing the release of a demolition RFP for 55 Washington. So we'll have that teed up and ready to go. So when we have the clearance from SHPO and HCR to take that building down, we'll be in position to select a contractor and move forward and do that. So after the zoning board and demolition, those are our last items for pre-development at these sites. FLACRA, separate from us, but in parallel, is preparing their funding application to build these units in their programming. And we're expecting to have an MOU with a purchase price and all of that coming in the future to push that fourth project along. So that one is nearing its completion, and we'll have moved those 2 properties off from the land bank, and I'm expecting in the next year or 2 that FLACRA will be able to start construction on the project that we helped them put together down there. So that'll be a total of 4 units, new units in the village. Basically, the same thing is happening with the Seneca housing projects at 2125 West Seneca Street in Ovid and 1473 Pleasant Street. We completed demolition at 1473 Pleasant Street in December. The reimbursement for that is included in that request from HCR, so we are expecting to be reimbursed for that. And Seneca Housing is able to be the owner operator of this 7-unit development across these 2 sites, and we're working with them to put together a application to HCR for the Small Rental Development Initiative, or SRDI, that is due February 14th, and it's taking all of the work that we're paying for with this LBI funding, the drawings, the environmentals, the demolition, all of that, to put together the application in partnership with them to get the majority of the funding needed to do these units. It's estimated to be about $3 million for the entire project. The county, through the trust fund program and ARPA dollars, has committed $500,000 to the project already, which is a big help. So we're going with that along with all of the investment that the land bank is doing through the land bank initiative to HCR for the biggest chunk of funding, which will be $2 million. And if we're successful in that, the plan is to include the remaining roughly $500,000 to get the $3 million on the next land bank grant that we will be applying for in the coming months. So that's all due on February 14th. The resolution that we're needing to introduce under new business is associated with that. It's another environmental site assessment we need for that application to make sure we're environmentally sound for new construction at that site. And yeah, we're continuing to partner with Seneca Housing and working to put this all together. There's lots of little moving pieces with these applications. Monica McCullough and MDA Development has been very good in coordinating exactly what she needs on behalf of Seneca Housing as the owner occupant or the owner operator of this project, on behalf of us as the entity putting all of this together and coordinating all of those needs between the environmental folks and the architects and the estimators at the general contractor and all the different aspects of this application. So that's due on the 14th, and then we're gonna get it on time, and I think we're gonna be competitive. So hopefully we get that. And the last major update is we are preparing, at least conceptually, to apply for that round 2 of land bank initiative funds. So we're on the first round right now. That's kind of how we're paying for all this. We need to be 75% spent to apply for the next one, and we're pretty close. Over the next couple of months, we should reach that precipice. The program allows for acquisition. So if we're thinking about what we might want to target in the next foreclosure process, the money for acquiring those properties we would be getting from round 2. Funding for potentially acquiring the dry cleaner in Waterloo would be under that umbrella, and really anything else we want to try to go after. So keep that in mind. I think as we get closer to needing to draft that application, we'll be working with the board to make sure we have everything in there we want to do. So they're roughly 2-year grants. Some land banks approach it by really only going for acquisition and some minor stabilization, and that's all they're going to do on that grant round. And they get all of that done, and they apply for the new grant for what they're going to do with the properties, which is a little bit different than other funding sources that allow the normally 2-year contracts, where you get upfront money for a long time, but that's also available to us, and then the more traditional path. So we're also thinking about what direction we want to go on that as well. So expecting around February, we'll be thinking about it more deeply and hopefully applying sometime around March. And we will hopefully know about the survey application by that time as well. So you can ask for up to $2 million, roughly 500,000 of that. We're going to apply for the Ovid Willard project. And then we'll figure out how much we're going to ask for after that to do all these other things.
Okay, so Joe has gone over the 4 bullet points. Does anyone have any questions on any of the 4 points that have been gone over by Joe?
I just let you know, Joe, and I don't know if you've been over there, Joe, but the sensors that were in the lot there on Seneca Street, they put these plastic things and they've got hoses going out of them and stuff.
Oh, for the phase 2, yes.
Yeah. I don't know if the runoff from the fire the other night, because that was several inches of water the next day. And I don't know if that wash off contamination stuff might affect whatever they were measuring.
I know they're done. I'm wondering why there's still stuff there.
Or they're like little plastic lids with tubing off of them and all that.
I will look into that. It shouldn't affect anything because we got the report back.
Okay.
We're clean.
Cause I just said there was a lot of water down there.
We were clean.
We were clean.
I don't know. More anymore.
There's a lot of
They
things.
were up over the top on it when I saw them the next morning, so I don't know what was.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we do have, and we'll get to it under new business, but learning a lot. So municipalities traditionally, when they do demolitions, leave the slab from a basement in the ground and they break it up and they put fill on top of it and away we go. That's traditionally how we've done things. When a developer does a demolition, they do not do that. They get everything out. And it's helpful to do it that way because you can take care of a lot of the things that you need to clear in the phase 2 process. So that's how I'm planning on structuring the RFP for 55 Washington and basically all of them going forward. Is we're taking the whole slab, the entire foundation out, and that way we're able to clear and cure some of these things ahead of time that we now have to go back and take care of because you weren't staged it completely.
You're saying that the slab could be contaminated? Is that what
No,
you're-
they have to measure and test the soil for soil vapor beneath the slab. And if the slab is there while they're on site for demolition, they can't do it correctly without like flying through and messing everything up. So if we pull out the whole slab, not saying we'll never have to do a phase 2 or anything again, it just puts us in a position to be able to address something if it needs to be addressed and can be addressed at that time. And also makes it easier for like the geotechnical folks when they design foundations and do everything on that front for the new construction piece of it to do that work as well. So the reason most municipalities do this is leave the slab when they do a municipal demolition. It's cheaper. I think that's how we approached it for many years. I had no idea. So going forward, we'll pull the slab out when we do these demolitions and make sure we're doing it in the context of whatever the phase 1 said. And if there's anything under that slab we need to address or measure, we can do it at that time without having to go back later and drill and bore and take sampling that way. So just food for thought when the RFP comes through for approval for 55 Washington and demo there, we're gonna pull the whole slab up just in case. So that is why we have this phase 2 coming up under new business for AMD to take those same borings that you were just talking about at West Seneca Street, do that same thing down in Willard at 1473. That gives us the turnaround time to have that report included in the CERTI application. That's due on February 14th. So we need that as part of the checklist to get that $2 million. So yeah, that's it.
That's it. So are there any other questions? No? No other questions, okay. So we'll do the attorney's report and then we'll do the CFO's report. Then under new business, we'll take a look at resolution 2503, if that's okay with everybody. Okay, all right. Esther, it's your turn.
Thank you. So as I don't know if you recall last year, we're coming into sort of the annual, as Joe mentioned, these annual meetings. We do a policy, we do subcommittees to meet, look at the policies. You have to readopt them every year under state law. And there's also, so that always gives me a chance to look at these policies. We've also, when we made some change last year, the procurement policy to make it easier, make it a little bit more fluid than we had before. And kind of remember we talked about, we wanted to match the land bank buying as opposed to, I think it was maybe it was based off of the county's policy. Instead, we sort of put more into it that was more characteristic of what the land bank does. So in looking at these policies and like sort of living with them for the whole year, and while we started this like role as a, I don't know, would you say developer?
Pre-developer.
Pre-developer. It's shown up in those policies a little bit that we could probably do even more to make more sense for what we do. So I just wanted to give a heads up that I'm gonna work on the procurement policy. My thinking is perhaps adding a little bit more, just more precise language around when we're acting as a pre-developer and you've already gone to RFP, like you have to pick these people, these environmental folks or the engineering consultants or the people. What they're doing is they're generating a contract every time. We talked about this a little bit at one of these meetings in the small office. So I don't want to repeat myself, but we're having a problem. We're kind of like, you're like approving this thing over and over and over again. And it's hard for Joe to be able to move this stuff through quickly in time if we have to wait each month to approve something that you've kind of already approved. But because they're generating a contract each time, our policy says you have to approve it. So thinking about certain projects, not everything, but certain projects should be maybe approved in a different way where we kind of know what the general cost is going to be, and then they're going to put in, Jill had mentioned that the airport does task orders or something like that. So I'm going to think about it a little bit more, and I'll have a draft for everybody to look at, but I thought I'd float that idea, let you know that was coming. And similarly on the disposition policy, working on the side lot, I just think we could be a little bit more precise that, you know, those special categories, they're special programs, disposition, the side lots, what are the other ones? Side lots, what we always do. I can't remember what the other ones are.
I don't think we've ever used any of the other ones.
We have them, you've got options somewhere in this policy here anyways. In those where you're setting, affordable housing, tenant to homeowner program, community garden green space program, homeowner choice. I'm thinking about how those things get priced. Generally speaking, the policy requires, if you're not gonna sell to a nonprofit, they get an appraisal. But I'm not sure if it makes sense to appraise a side lot, do that necessarily. So perhaps we should include a place for the board to decide whether you want it or not, as opposed to a shall. It could be bring it forward to the board and you guys can discuss it. But if it's a side lot or something like this where it's only $1,500 and you're gonna pay $600 for an appraisal, nobody else wants it. Perhaps the board might want the ability to say you don't have to appraise it first. Thoughts on that? So that's coming forward. Obviously you all get to decide, but those are just a couple ideas I found just in trying to make these policies less boilerplate and more related to the work you're doing. So we meet in February, or we meet in March for policy. We meet at the end of February, I think.
Okay.
So we're working on those. The policy committee will look at them first. And if they want to tell me that they don't like it or they want feedback or changes, we could do that. We can adopt the policies as is and still make changes throughout the year. So it's not a panic button thing, but just something to work on.
So the audit committee and the governance committee, the two committees that do those things, and they consist of the same people, Jill Henry, Frank Seneca, and Les Marco. So we'll find a meeting time at the end of February to go over potential policy changes and the audit. We'll also invite the treasurer as well. And anybody else who would like to attend.
Are you
And
complete?
that's pretty much it.
All right, well,
Yeah.
thanks, Esther.
You're welcome.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, next, we're gonna go to the CFO treasurer update by Mike.
Okay, we're gonna start on the first page, which is the balance sheet comparison. There's a couple of items on this page that are worth noting. Significant pay down, as we had discussed a few months back, for the line of credit with Generations Bank, down over $30,000. We look down below that line of credit. I believe, Joe, you mentioned the reimbursement coming from HCR. So that, I believe that's gonna show up in 10091. Is that where you expected, or we're looking at 132,000 reimbursement for some of the things we did?
Yeah, so we'll see that reimbursement come into actually 10092.
Okay.
And we'll see that come in there, and then however accountants distribute that to represent the line items that have been
Right.
reimbursed. I'm not exactly sure how that will manifest in these reports, but I will definitely see it come through on that HCR phase
That's
two
the
report
gateway.
too. The 8044 account, I believe, was envisioned to be the line of credit advance. Maybe not. No, 8044 is the phase one HCR operating and administration grant, which is a separate
Okay.
grant.
Moving on, of course, our list of properties, Washington Street increased a little. I mean, you appeared last month at our planning board meeting with drawings. That'll continue to grow as we do work on that property. Going on to the second page, not really a lot in the way of changes as far as the ending to that report. The following page, I've got new glasses on and I still can't read it. But it's breaks it out by the month. I mean, we tend to discuss quarterly, but this does chart your balance sheet monthly. Following page is budgeted, and it looks very similar to the page that follows after, which really is the one that I want to focus on. So the profit and loss comparison is the one that I would prefer to discuss. We did have some increases. Of course, we're talking about significant demolition and survey type abatement type work being done. So there was some advances to LBI phase one and phase two. It looks like we increased by a good 158,000. You saw a 30,000 decrease in your line of credit before. If you slide down this report to lines 5110 and 5117, you find about 90,000, a little over $90,000 worth of new expenses. That's the demolition that Joe mentioned earlier for 17 Walnut and 1473 Pleasant. Also about $2,400 with lawn maintenance spent during that time period. Down below, a little bit of legal and professionals, MMDA with Monica, Bonadio, Bowers, showing up in the legal and professionals, and insurance, of course, with Eastern Shore, a few extra $1,000 worth of expenses there. But really with this report this month, the big jump is that the line being paid, the demolition work of about $90,000, and the LDI phase one and phase two increases, of course, that hopefully next time we'll be talking about the ACR reimbursement.
I expect so.
You knocked down a couple of those.
All right. Thank you. So do I have a motion to approve the CFO treasury report?
So moved.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the report? Anybody have any questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the treasury report, say aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, it was unanimous. And next, we're gonna go under new business. We're gonna take a look at resolution 25-03, which is a resolution authorizing a contract with AMD Environmental Consultants Incorporated for phase two environmental site assessment at 2125 West Seneca Street. Okay, so is there a motion so we can discuss this?
Make the motion.
Is there a second? Okay, so we have a motion and a second, so now we can have some discussion and explanation.
The address, I think, can we have a motion to change the name of the resolution to 1473 Pleasant Street?
So we need an amendment of this motion.
All right, so we have an amendment to change the address from 2125 West Seneca Street to what, 21 Pleasant Street?
1473
Oh,
Pleasant.
1473 Pleasant Street.
You could combine them, you could do it as, just amend this motion to pass this and also change the address, and then it's just one you have to vote.
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
So, if you'll agree to the amendment.
Good.
It's a
Yes.
friendly amendment.
So do we vote on the amendment right now?
No, because then you've amended your motion, so your motion would be to, to move to accept this resolution and also change this to reflect the
Oh,
correct
okay,
address.
yes, all right, okay, very good.
Yep.
Okay, so, go right ahead, Joe.
That was, so we got this proposal, I expected it, I was hoping it would get here, a little bit quicker than today, but, here we are. So this is as a result of, identifying fuel oil, as the phase one at 1473 Pleasant Street. During the demolition process, this AMD, we worked with the demolition contractors to remove the tanks in the correct manner. And that was done, and I had the manifest to document that from disposal. So there was still staining and things that needed to be done to the standard of these environmental site assessments. There's like practices and rules, like these are done a certain way, they have to be trusted by banks, and other financial institutions to demonstrate that they do or do not have a problem. So to get to that standard, to demonstrate we don't have a problem, we still need to do the phase two, and we needed this to be part of the package to HCR for the next $2 million we need for the project. So we should have this turned around in time to include in the submission, and it's my understanding that it is a little bit cheaper because they don't have to look for tanks that might be there. We've documented that the tanks have been removed, we didn't bury them. So that was why the one at 2125 West Seneca Street, where we had torn that down in 2022, where we didn't have that manifest from the fuel oil tank, they had to look for it and document that they couldn't find it. So this one's a little bit cheaper than the last one. And yeah, we should be able to have the report back in time and add it to the application and move forward. So we would need to do this for building really anything that was financed, is really my understanding.
And so all the terms and conditions here that are, with all these red marks are okay with you after?
Those are my additions, yep. Those are my changes, yep.
Okay, good.
And they're the same changes every single time.
Yeah, we have a form, we've been adding them on every time.
All right.
We have one of these.
Okay.
So you've changed addresses. Does that change the price, I think?
No, the resolution, so we did the same resolution for the same work at phase two at the other site in Ovid. And I moved that resolution over for this site, for this property, and I did not change the address and the title. So that's why we had to change the title there. So no, the price was more expensive previously. This one's actually cheaper than the last one we did.
Are there any other questions on this resolution? Okay. Well, hearing none, all those in favor of approving resolution 25-03 as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, it passed unanimously. Is there any other new business come before the board? Has anybody got anything they want to discuss while we're here? Okay, so the next meeting will be,
Tuesday, February 25th.
February what?
25th.
February 25th, okay, so see you all on February 25th. If you got any questions come up, you can always call Mr. Joe here, the county. All right, well, thank you for coming to this meeting, and we appreciate it. Everybody